Welcome to The Favorites, the podcast presented by Bet365. We are part of the Volume Podcast Network. I am Chad Millman, Chief Content Officer of the Action Network. We are live from our Midtown Manhattan studios, the Tommy John studio at Action Network HQ. I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, my companion, my compadre, my BFF, Simon Hunter. Hello, Simon.
We made it, brother. We made it.
We get to see each other face to face. Last night, you and I went to dinner together.
Yeah.
And we talked about all the things that BFFs talk about when they are at dinner together. Most importantly, are we overinvested in the Carolina Panthers? Yeah. Have we made a mistake on the Giants? Can you convince me to actually bet the Bears instead of the Titans? We are going to get to all of it. Today is our NFL Week 1 Best Bets episode. Simon and I narrowed down our 5 picks in the Favorites podcast. $100,000 pro football pick'em contest presented by Bet365. Don't forget, you can still sign up at favorites.actionnetwork.com. On today's show, as we will do every Thursday this season, we'll do sharp calls, our big balls bet of the week, the underdog moneyline parlay, survivor pool picks, Simon's biggest bets. Our director of research, Evan Abrams, will join us, and so much more. But first, as a reminder, the Favorites podcast is presented by Bet365. And this just in, new Bet365 customers now get $200 in bonus bets when you bet $5. Sign up using promo code FAVORITES, deposit $10, and place a bet for $5 to get $200 in bonus bets. Those bonus bets can be used on spreads, totals, player props, futures, and more. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 or older and present in Arizona, Colorado, Indiana, Iowa, Louisiana, North Carolina, New Jersey, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Virginia, or 18 and older in Kentucky. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa. Terms, conditions, restrictions apply. Once again, if you want to sign up for the Favorites $100,000 Pro Football Pick'em contest, free to play, 5 picks every single week, season long. If you want to get in before week 1, now is the time to do it. You will have chances to get in over the next couple of weeks because we drop a couple of scores, but now is the time to get in if you want to have the full slate for the next 18 weeks. That's all the way into the new year, folks. Don't get left behind. It's totally free to play. Like I said, just 5 picks against the spread every single week, over $100,000 in cash prizes up for grabs. You will be competing against me and Simon. The picks that we talk about on this show, what we narrow it down to, that is what will end up in the contest. First place in this contest takes home $40,000 every single week. The first place finisher, the person who has the best record during the week, gets $1,000. If they nail the tiebreaker exactly, that $1,000 grows to $2,000. We did hear people had problems signing for the contest. We've gotten through that. Go sign up now. Favorites.actionnetwork.com. All right. As always, we like to hear how the wise guys are responding to our Tuesday conversation. That's how influential we are as a podcast, how inside we are, Simon. The lines move based on our conversations. We saw it happen on Tuesday. We've seen it happen over the last 48 hours. The pros also feel compelled. They're our own little sort of Roman Senate telling us constantly what they think of our opinions. All right, Simon, let's go to some sharp calls. Just give me the highlights here. What games have the guys said were right and were wrong before we dive in a little bit deeper?
Well, let's start with what they hated, Chad, because that's really what people want to know. What do the pros hate that we picked? Off the top, they hate our Lions pick.
They do?
Yeah. They love the Rams.
No! No!
They think we're walking into it, and I disagree. I think this sets up nice for this Detroit team at home in this scenario.
I love that they hate it because we're going to come back around on it. It raises the stakes
a little bit
on this bet for later in the show.
Well, I just said to them, it's brutal because it's the only favorite me and you agreed on, really.
Yeah. Although I'm coming around on Seattle.
You are?
Yeah.
Okay. So that was definitely an interesting take. that was one off the top. The number two is a game you like. I know our guy Chris Raybon likes. They all like Tennessee. They keep throwing that stat in my face, right? Number one pick overall. What are they? 0-14-1 in their last
Basically,
15 starts against the spread. We'll get into that game because I got a lot of opinions on that Chicago game, but I haven't budged on that. I still love Chicago, so it's not shocking to hear they love the Titans so much. The Detroit one shocked me more, the fact they love the Rams so much, but this one didn't. For the last one that they think we got wrong, Chad, I can't believe it. It's the Giants. They like the Vikings, so that's another one we're going to dive into.
Yeah.
I just don't think people understand that this Giants team isn't as bad as they perceive, and that's what I'm trying to get into people's heads here. That's how I try to get into their heads. They won't budge. They like the defense of the Vikings better. They like the offensive scheme of the Vikings better. So that's definitely one that's more split than I thought it was going to be. I thought that was going to be the pros versus shows. I thought the public would be on the Vikings. The pros would be on the Giants. It's honestly split right down the middle. The pros, I've talked to pros who like our side and pros who really hate that bet we made. So that's off the top. For the ones they love, I think a couple of the ones we knew they were going to love, right? The Panthers. That's a pros game. We knew the pros would love that. Unfortunately, it sounds like it's a little bit of the public game as well. The public has come around on this Panthers team.
Dog.
It is, but again, I think it's because of the number, right? We've seen the 4.5 now drop down to 4, 3.5 at a couple books. So to me, again, that makes sense. The pros like the number. I don't think we'd play it the same as at 3.5 as we would at 4.5. So to me, that's the big difference there. And the last one is the Jets. Like the pros love the Jets. Like the 49ers, they've had so much turmoil. It makes sense why the public would be on the Jets as well. And then you throw into the trends, all the numbers. You want to be on the Jets at 4.5. Even though I get the fear because there's been a lot of buyback on the 49ers. I think it's just because it's the Monday night game, right? Guys, we talk all the time. People are going to have their parlays, all their teasers tied to this 49ers team. So I'm not too shocked the number's gone up. It's holding now 4.5. Now, if me and you come into our show Sunday night and that number's up to 6, I'm going to be scared because that's some big professional money coming in on the 49ers. But right now, to me, it's business as usual. So as far as you guys for sharp calls, we got a couple of picks they hate, Chad, and a couple of picks they love.
Well, it's good because it also allows us to dig in a little bit deeper on some of these games.
Yeah.
The Giants game in particular, the Lions game. I know we talked about what our big balls bet of the week, presented by Tommy John, by the way, but what it might be before the show.
Yeah.
I think we need to call an audible. I'm going to call the audible based on the sharp calls when we get to it. All right, so listen. Simon and I discussed on Tuesday that, early into the season, we lean into these trends a bit more than normal because we don't know a ton about these teams yet. Like, quarterbacks aren't playing a lot during the preseason, so it's hard to judge the real tendencies of these teams at this point. So we can't play spots. We can't take advantage of a lot of mispricing. All of that is just harder in weeks 1 and week 2. So there are a couple trends. There's about 3 trends that I just want to highlight right now. If I refer back to them during the show, when I say this team follows the trends, it's these trends just so I don't have to repeat them every single time. Number 1, again, all from the brilliant mind of our director of research, Evan Abrams. Underdogs between 1 and 5.5 points. In week 1, cover at a 64% clip since 2018. It's a sample size of nearly 150 games. By the way, they're also 58% over the past decade. Really good trend for underdogs in that 1 to 5.5 range. Favorites of 1 to 3.5 points cover only 43% of the time in September, based off a sample size of more than 550 games. Road dogs who missed the playoffs the year before, 58% against the spread the past 20 years. A lot of games that fit into all these trends, plus some divisional stuff that we're going to talk about. Look, the first game that is sort of on the edge of our top 5, Pittsburgh and Atlanta. Atlanta is a 3-point favorite. We've been holding out, hoping to get 3.5. It's one of the few games that hasn't moved. A lot of games have. The juice is on the -3 at -120, so it could go to 3.5. They're asking us to pay the price to get the 3. I just think the more I think about this game, it's so hard not to back the Steelers here, right? It is like one of those bets that did not get a lot of my attention until the past 48 hours. I'd even make it a candidate for an underdog parlay, which we're going to get to. Maybe it won't get there. But look, the stats I ticked off at the top of the show are relevant. Mike Tomlin, the best underdog coach against the spread the past 20 years. Is going to make our final five. Do we like Pittsburgh right now?
We like Pittsburgh. You said there's a lot of books out there that have this at 3.5. The book we're working with has it at 3. Are we really going to force it in at 2.5 at a bad number when there's 3.5s out there?
Good point.
No. That's just something we never do. So we like this number. This is another game, though, the pros are split on. I think there's some professionals that really love this Atlanta team. They got them pegged as 11-12 win team, a top seed in the NFC. And this to them is a game that kind of sets that benchmark because Atlanta does have some tough games here early in the slate. So looking at this matchup, I think me and Chad said what we need to say about this one, where it's like we like the coaching matchup better for Pittsburgh. We like Pittsburgh's defense much more than we trust Atlanta's offense, especially, again, Kirk Cousins' first game after coming off this insane injury. You know, Achilles is a big deal, especially for someone that's putting all their power and their weight onto that back heel. Every time they push off, every throw he makes is on that back heel. So my hesitation for Atlanta is valid. The numbers, though, that's what we're playing here. Like 3.5, I love Pittsburgh. If it's 2.5, there's no chance. There's no chance I'd even think about putting this one
in the contest, we're not going to play it at 2.5.
But 3.5, I'd bet Pittsburgh every day.
And it's very possible that if we wait, because the contest plays, we can go until Sunday, and the lines are dynamic. The Steelers get to 3.5, and if I've got the Steelers at 3.5 on the road with Mike Tomlin against a coach who is not a rookie head coach from Raheem Morris, but is new with this team, and Kirk Cousins coughing off an Achilles, and like T.J. Watt on the edge against Kirk Cousins off an Achilles, that will be a very hard game.
And they just paid Cam Hayward. Like that defense for Pittsburgh. I mean, we can make fun of their offense. That defense is incredible. Like they just got skills across every line. The secondary is incredible. So that's our real big hesitation, right? We want to play this one. Just the number's not there for us right now.
All right, Jags in Miami, Dolphins 3.5. We had been on monsoon watch for this game. It looks like the weather is going to be clear. The line has moved in Miami's direction the past 48 hours. I don't know why. I don't know if you have any insights there.
Weather. If it's going to be good weather, that definitely favors Miami,
but that doesn't make any sense because you can't logically look at these teams and say, all of a sudden, Miami is a field goal better. You only have to look at the first 8 weeks of the Jaguars last year and know this was a team that was going to win their division if Trevor Lawrence doesn't get hurt.
And I think, honestly, that's why we like this number so much. It feels like too much respect is being paid to Miami, what they did last year, how dominant and great they were at home. And another thing you could throw in, we didn't even talk about, is they struggled against good teams, right? I think they were 1-7 last year against playoff teams. Again, the Jaguars were not a playoff team last year, but you just said it. They were going to be.
Good team.
They're a really good team. Like, if they didn't have injuries and they didn't fall off a cliff, they would have been in the playoffs last year.
Yeah.
So I'm in complete agreement with Chad here. It's just the hate for the Jaguars has gone too far. In a game that we both expect will be a shootout, I love the Jaguars to stay in this game. Like, everything they do, I never feel like, even if they're down 10, it feels like me and Chad will get that back door at the end of the game. So, to me, the key number 3.5, I'm right there with you, Chad. I would not be shocked if this is one of our 5.
Yeah, it's so interesting to me. If you look at the Dolphins, no Jalen Ramsey, no Chubb on the edge, Christian Wilkins is gone. Their defense has no real game changers. We have Trevor Lawrence at 22-1 to lead the league in passing yardage.
Yeah.
Like, we believe in this Jaguars team probably a lot more, obviously, than the market does. I mean, I'm putting them on the list.
You're putting them on the list.
I'm not saying they're going to be in the finals, but it's really hard not to consider.
It's a really nice number for week one.
With how much we like them.
Yeah.
All right. Listen, we're really on a ledge here. And it's funny, our foxhole bet on Tuesday was Vikes at Giants plus 1.5. We've been talking about the Giants plus 1.5 since the offseason when these lines first posted.
Yeah.
We have planted a flag in the sand. We have pushed our chips in the middle of the table. Like I said, you and I had dinner last night. We're talking about all these games. This morning, before I came in, I listened to Stuckey and Raybon on the Action Network pod. They do their Sunday six-pack, which I love. I like to listen to them because I like to see, like, are we on the same side of some of their games? And we were on the same side of a lot of the games. They love the Vikings here.
Yeah.
And you've mentioned this in Sharp Calls. Like, in every way, we are invested in the Giants on this one. Now I feel like we're really in a foxhole. We're against Stuckey and Raybon, and we're against the wise guys. Are you going to have to talk me off a ledge?
No, because I think they're painting it as if it's a perfect world where, I get it, the Giants secondary is where you can attack them. What's the strength of this Vikings team? They're wideouts, right? But it's Sam Darnold. At the end of the day, it is Sam Darnold. And, like, to me, there's a bunch of things where, yeah, maybe, Chad, when we're down 14-3 in the first quarter, I'm going to feel like an idiot because it's like, why did we back this team? But I just can't see it playing out that way. Like, I just think Dabo's going to have this team so prepared, this Giants team. Like, everything I've read and seen, this team, Daniel Jones has kind of gotten off those early seasons coming back from a big injury, right? He did not look right for the first 2 weeks of camp. I totally agree with those people. These last 3 weeks, he's really put together a lot of good camps, a lot of good practices. Then you mix in, I don't think enough people are factoring Neighbors. Like, he's never had a Neighbors. Like, as much as we want to praise Saquon Barkley, do running backs move the needle, Chad?
No.
Not for us. Like, if it's a running back going to a great team like McCaffrey, that's a big deal to me and you. Like, we always talk about how big of a deal that was, that Carolina trade. Other scenarios, it doesn't really make that big. If you're a bad team, the running back's not the key. Like, you need a guy on the outside that can win in one-on-ones. And I think Neighbors is that guy for this team. Again, if Marvin Harrison Jr. was not in this draft, Chad, he would have been the number one receiver easily, would have been a top 5 pick most likely. This kid is that gifted. So, to me, I still think not enough love's being paid to this Giants team. The only hesitation for me is their defensive coordinator, who we respected a lot, he left and went to Ohio State, right? So that means their defense is going to be a little different this year. They've added pieces. Like, to me, their linebacking core is really good. The fact they brought in Burns to try to solidify someone on the outside, because, again, we already know inside they're great. Inside the D-tackle position, they have one of the best D-tackles in football. So, to me, it just keeps adding up to this Giants team got to 6 wins last year with Tommy DeVito and good coaching. Now they have a better roster than they've had in Dabo's whole career there, and people are selling them. They're just totally out on this team. And we're getting them as a home dog against Sam Darnold on the road. A guy who is, I don't remember off the top of my head, but I think Evan said he's 4-10 as a favorite. So it's like, it's just all adding up. We like the trends. We like the team. We like the matchup. I think the public perception, the hate on the Giants has gone too far. And that's where we're getting such a good number on this, where, if this was late in the season, there's no chance the Giants would be an underdog in this spot. I think it's just really public perception is really dictating this line right now. And like I said, you said it too, there's pros on both sides here.
Yeah. So
this is definitely a standoff between the professionals on this side where the public probably is not going to bet this game. Because it's just, when you look at the board, they want nothing to do with this one. So these are the kind of games I love because this really sets up both these teams for the season, people's opinions on both teams.
I feel like this also answers so many debates. 2 years ago, Daboll and Kevin O'Connell are rookie head coaches, right? They both have the kind of years, they were 1-2 in one-score games. It was just a miracle. Every single week, one of them was winning a one-score game. They get to the playoffs, Daniel Jones, Kirk Cousins, Brian Daboll, Kevin O'Connell, and the Giants beat the Vikings at home, right? Daboll wins Coach of the Year. He's getting all the accolades, like you said, like the pendulum has swung so much. I feel like this is a really interesting coaching definition game.
Yeah.
Because of what we saw. Like, I have wondered for the past season, did Kevin O'Connell not get enough credit? And you're always like, he lost at home in the playoffs to the guy that we're saying
is terrible.
It deserves more credit. So now both teams stink. Both QBs are suspect. We get a chance to see who deserves any hype as a coach. I think this is a huge, huge game for the trajectory of both of their coaching careers. You talked me back into the house.
There we go.
I was on the ledge. I feel much more confident now. It is our foxhole. I am hyper invested in the Vikings at 15-1 to have the worst record in the NFL. I would very much like to kick it off
with a loss.
With a positive way. All right. Carolina at New Orleans. This number is at 4. This was my exact decision. I feel like the Panthers may be the closest thing we have to a consensus pick for the over this season, according to everybody at the at the Action Network.
Yeah.
Win totals. We have expectation busting bets on the Carolina Panthers right now. They've upgraded the offensive line at both guards. They've upgraded at wide receiver. They've upgraded at coaching. All of the trends that I mentioned at the top are applicable here. So one more I'll add for you. NFL division underdogs, 37-15-1 against the spread. 71% in week one since 2014, covering by nearly 5 points per game. Couldn't feel better about this Carolina bet, except for the fact everybody in the world is now on Carolina.
Well, actually, if you look, even in the Action app, the tickets are slanted towards the Saints, but it's the money is overwhelmingly on the Panthers. Like, that's, we say all the time, that's professional money.
That's good.
Right.
That's what we want.
And I think that's why, even now, I just opened it up to two of the most public sports books out there. They both have moved to 3.5, which is shocking. Like, the books that don't take professional money somehow are at 3.5. So it does show the public, like you just said, they are starting to come in on this Panthers team. But like I said, dude, I think it's just because of the number. Like 4.5, I felt like it was way too high. 3.5 feels honestly right. Like this, I had this number graded at 3, so getting it to 3.5, that sounds right to me. If it got to 3, I might be able to be talking to taking the Saints because that's when the value does switch to them. But we're getting 4.5 right now in our contest, and you can still get 4.5 at a couple books out there. I know our sponsor Bet365 is at 4, but that's a good number. Like to me, this is going to be a close game. Like who do you think is going to make the mistake here? I think it's the Saints. Like I have more faith in Bryce Young playing smart, playing safe, protecting the ball. Where Derek Carr,
dude,
he's looking over his shoulder already. He knows that Spencer Rattler's coming for that job, and even the fans, the Saints fans, are pushing for this kid. So to me, I feel like Bryce Young is going to be playing free and carefree in this new offense. And like again, we already talked at nauseam about it during his new head coach. We love everything we've read and heard coming out of the Panthers camp. The question for us is their secondary. Like, at the end of the day, they do have one of the worst secondaries in football, people. And I understand why you're like, well, that's why I'm taking Olave's over, and that's why I kind of like the Saints to stay in this game. But do you like them at this number? That's my question to people. It's like, in this divisional game, how do you not take the Panthers that are basically equals with this Saints team? I know they don't look that way because of win totals and the public perception from last year, but to me, starting fresh with a brand new season, this isn't last year, right? This isn't this terrible bums we bet last year in this Panthers team. This is a new Panthers team with a new identity, whole new coaching staff. So, to me, we're banking on a big Bryce Young bounce back this season. It's got to start here. Like, if this guy's going to win us our divisional bet, Chad, he's got to win this week 1 game. So, again, we're going to get into our Moneyline Round Robin bet later on. This is probably going to sneak in there for this Moneyline Round Robin.
Yeah, I think, look, when we talk about the Panthers and the reason why everybody at Action is so all over the Panthers, partially because of their luck factors last year and all the games that they lost.
Just bad coaching.
They were in a position to win because of bad coaching, unlucky turnovers, things that just happened that over the course of time regressed back for them in a good way. You mentioned Dave Canales. People who don't understand, when Geno Smith went from sort of wandering quarterback, journeyman quarterback, to Pro Bowler, it was because Dave Canales was his coach. Last season in Tampa Bay, when Baker Mayfield went from journeyman quarterback to Bucs in the playoffs, Dave Canales was his coach. So we're all investing a lot in a regression to the mean for their luck. We're investing a lot in what Dave Canales can do as a coach. We're investing in improvements on the offensive line. We're investing in Bryce Young being a little bit better. We're also fading in a big way what you just said. Dennis Allen, Derek Carr, truly at the bottom of their respective rankings when it comes to coaches and quarterbacks against the spread during their time in the league. I mean, these guys are awful at this. And you mentioned Derek Carr already looking over his shoulder. There was a study, a survey. The fan base with the least amount of optimism is the New Orleans Saints.
Yeah.
Very possible Spencer Rattler is starting a quarterback for the Saints with a different coach by the time we're talking about this team 4 weeks from now.
I believe it.
Before Halloween, for sure. All right, Arizona, Buffalo. I don't feel like we want to put this one in.
Nah.
Skip it. All right.
I was going to say, like, that we didn't even talk about sharp calls, but that was definitely one where if you're a fan of the show and you listened to us back in May, I love the Bills. I thought we were getting a good number on the Bills. Basically got a bunch of sharp calls, bullied me into getting off my position on that and moving towards Arizona, which people know if they listen all summer. I do love Arizona. There's too many questions here, Chad. There's too many questions, and I don't like how the number's been moving. It went from 5.5 up to 6.5. Now people are saying, well, if you like the Cardinals, why don't you just wait and hope to get a 7? Because I told you guys on Tuesday's show, this will be one of the biggest tease teams. The Bills will be in a lot of teasers, just like I said, Seattle and Cincinnati will. This is just, they fit the profile, right? So I'm happy with wait and seeing, right?
Yeah.
We want to see the connection with Kyler and Marvin Harris. So, I got no issue sitting this one out, but I'm with you. It's a game where I did think we'd have it as one of our 5, and now as the days have gone along here, it's just like, you know what? Why don't we just sit and wait and see on that one?
Dude, you know it's Marvin Harrison, right?
Yeah. You know the whole joke, right?
No.
You'd never say the man's name.
Why?
I'm not going to tell you why, but there's a reason you never say that man's name.
It's like Voldemort? I don't know the joke. And now, you know what? I don't even want to press it.
You don't want to.
I don't want to
You're
press
not from
it.
Philly. You don't know. You don't know.
I don't want to, like, I think I know where this is going,
Yeah.
having done some stories on Marvin Harrison.
I don't even say
Senior
his name.
back
Don't
in
even
the
say
day.
his name. Oh, my God.
I don't want to give Matt Mitchell anything he's got to cut out. Houston at Indy. This was our Simon Says. It's now at 3 at Bet365,
Yeah.
so it's ticked up. This is public money. I think this is a game that's going to go higher. We are investing in something that we believe in, not something we've seen with Anthony Richardson. But that divisional dog trend that I mentioned earlier in the show, that is in play here, the same one that the Panthers have the advantage over the Saints. The dogs between 1 and 5.5, that's a check. Fading the short favorite on the road especially, that's a check. I don't know, maybe we wait until Sunday to see if we can get a better number, but obviously we're going to go with the Colts in the contest.
Yeah, and I don't mind taking the 2.5, but I think me and you joked last night about it, right? You were saying, what's your hesitation here? I said, the kid's made 17 starts since high school. Like, Anthony Richardson, he doesn't have the reps. That's the fear, and that's why I understand why the public is coming in so heavy on Houston. Also, you mix in the fact the Colts have won, one game in the week 1 in like 10 years? I mean, they're one of the worst teams historically in this week 1. And that's people playing the trends, right? They're just back in the trends there. What really signaled to me, Chad, was this tweet I saw yesterday. Bookmakers say they have 4 times the amount of money right now on Houston than they do have Colts.
Oh.
That this will literally dictate, this one game will dictate their entire Sunday compared to any other game. If you listen to the show long enough, this is where I want to be. I want to be with the books. Even if this doesn't hit, this is a long-term winner. The book, like we say all the time, there's a reason all those hotels exist in Atlantic City and Las Vegas, right? The books long-term, they're going to win these ones. So to me, when I hear bookmakers saying they have 4 times the amount of money on Houston than they do on any other side, oh my God, it feels so good. Like, that's why I'm so happy we got the 3 now. Even in our contest, if it's 2.5, I have no hesitation.
Oh, see, I was going to say to you, in the contest, do we feel strongly enough at 2.5?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah,
Because like, all of a sudden, we'll be...
This number's not landing on 3.
Well, I'm just saying, like, all of a sudden it could be, we're faced with an option of Jags at 3.5 or Colts at 2.5.
Honestly, I would go Colts there.
Okay. All right.
The closest one I am to being bullied and taken out of is that Giants game we talked about, just because of respect I have for all these other professionals, where it's like, I get their hesitation with it. I'm kind of digging my heels in on that one, where this one, it's not so much, I'm just playing the numbers, right? Like, this one is purely, I feel like this game should be 1. Houston should be favored by 1, maybe at a pick. The number's just grown too much. There's just been too much going on for this number to grow
By
this
the way,
high.
I have no problem taking the Vikings-Giants game out of our 5 and not having to sweat that on Sunday night or
No, I
Monday
kind of
night.
want you to sweat it, though.
You know, like,
Yeah.
we got so many other games we like, and this one we're getting so many conflicting signals. I kind of want to skip Denver and Seattle. I don't think it's going to make our. I don't think it's going to make our final 5.
And especially, I've seen a lot of books already shifted up to the 6. For us, I was hoping this would drop down to 5.5. Maybe we would get lucky, and some professional money would come in on Denver. They're the same view as us. It's a rookie, Bo Nix, on the road against the 12th man, and what we perceive to be one of the better defensive minds in football. So that money's never going to shift. This number is what it is, right? It's kind of stuck where it's at. So I'm agreeing with you. I just can't be this being our one favorite we put in.
Washington at Tampa 3.5 right now. This one, like, all the trends are sort of leaning in the direction we want them to. And I talked about the luck rankings earlier. The luck rankings are in my head a little bit. Like, I know everything about rookie QBs and Jaden Daniels and sort of the trends against betting that. But Baker is 14-26 as a favorite. Todd Bowles is 7-14 as a favorite of 3 or more. We have talked about the Panthers a lot because of the luck rankings. At the opposite end of that, one of the luckier teams last year was the Bucs. We are fading the Bucs. We like their season win total under. I know Nick Giffen has been saying to fans, go find a Bucs to finish last in the NFC South bet.
Yeah.
I don't want to put this in the contest, but I feel obligated to at least finish the conversation.
Yeah, and I have no read on this one, honestly.
Okay.
Like, this is the game where I bet props. I bet Mike Evans over receiving props just because we talked about bad secondaries. Washington is another team that has a horrible secondary. So I'm looking forward to just watching Jaden Daniels. I don't want to put too much money on this one because Chad's right. Like, in my soul, I wanted to bet Baker, especially when this touched 3. This was at 3 almost all day yesterday at a couple of books. That's honestly where I wanted to be at. I wanted to take Baker at 3. Now this up to 3.5. Yeah, of course. The better in me is like, why don't you just take the 3.5 with Jaden Daniels? Like, this feels like a coin flip game. I just can't do it. I can't pull the trigger on it. There's just too many unknowns for me, Chad.
Good. Now we're narrowing it down. If you are in the production room, listen to me. Come to camera 1, because guess what? It is time for the Big Balls Bet of the Week, presented by Tommy John. That's right. Our Big Balls Bet of the Week is presented by our newest sponsor, Tommy John. Listen, you guys who listened to the first show, you know how much I love Tommy John. I was trying to think of a way before I came in this morning how to describe how much I love Tommy John, and I started to think about like affordable luxury. These are things that just make you feel good, that are completely affordable. This Tommy John, it's softer than other underwear, it's lighter. You put it on, you feel better. It is the MVP of my underwear drawer in Tommy John. I can do everything, including betting. I feel more confident as a bettor in my second skin underwear, Tommy John. Our producer tells me a lot of listeners complained I talked way too much about my underwear last episode, but guess what? I don't care. If you love Simon and I, if you love this show, you'll love Tommy John. Get 25% off your first order right now at TommyJohn.com/favorites. Save 25% at TommyJohn.com/favorites, which means, Simon, it's time for the big balls. Tommy John has just told us it's time for the big balls bet of the week. We were going to make it a different game.
Yeah.
And then I just called an audible because it feels like we are dug in on the Lions.
Yeah.
And the wise guys like the Rams.
Yeah.
Like, we say these about trends, right? We like these trends when they're 58%, 60%, 71%, if we're talking about divisional games. But that also means that like 5.5 out of 10, 4 out of 10, you're going to lose that bet also. I feel like we're trying to thread the needle with this Lions team here. And look, like this could go to 4. So I think if people want to get it, they got to get it now because the juice is on 3.5 minus 120. But there's more money on the Lions. I would have no problem putting them in the contest if we are looking to put in a favorite. The Lions have the best 3-year stretch against the spread since the Patriots in that 2016 to 2018 range. Jared Goff, 25-9 against the spread indoors. Jared Goff undefeated against the spread as a starter during his career. Like, we do have concerns about the Rams defense without Aaron Donald. We love the Lions foundationally, offensive line, defensive line. I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid. By the way, Eminem right there.
Is that who sings that? Yeah, this is going to be by far our chalkiest bet, maybe even of the season. Like, this doesn't get more chalky than this. I talked to 2 bookmakers yesterday, asked them, what's your guys' view on this game? How are the numbers looking? It's about 2 to 3 times the amount of money right now is on the Lions than it is on the Rams.
Are you afraid?
No, because I view it as, I'm not afraid. I view it just because it's the Sunday night game. So, like, these people that love these parlays, they always tie it back to the Sunday night game just so they can either buy out or hedge out of their position that night. My view of it, though, is what you just talked about, right? We think this number should be 4.5. It's 3.5, and we have questions right now about the Rams. We have questions about the Rams' offensive line. We have questions what their identity is going to be without Aaron Donald and that young secondary. None of that. None of that at all with this Detroit team. Maybe we do have some questions about the new pieces they added to their secondary, but I just feel so confident in this offense, and I think they are going to be able to run this ball down the Rams' throat. Like, that's where we're going to see the biggest difference of losing Aaron Donald, what he did in that middle, not just in pass rushing, but eating up 2 to 3 blockers on rushing. Like, this guy was just an animal, and not the everyday person realizes that, but this guy was really that important to this team. So, the Gibbs, David Montgomery, the two-headed horse we think Detroit has in that backfield, that's going to set up Laporta and Almon St. Brown. Like, that to me is the big difference here. And we already talked about it. People know we love this offensive line. Like, the Lions, I'd have to go back and grade it, but I think they're either my second or number one offensive line heading into this season. It's like, this team is so complete. That's why we joked, like, they should be the 1 seed in the NFC. Like, it's all there for this season.
It's just hard to say that about the Lions.
It's hard to say about the Lions. And that does kick me back to my mind. Here, in week 1, at home, that doesn't worry me at all. So, don't think we're the chalkiest. We do chalky picks like this. This is just lining up with us.
Don't think. Like, you're just saying that to new people. Like, we've asked people so far to bet on the Giants, the Panthers, the Colts. We're talking about Daniel Jones, Bryce Young, Anthony Richardson, who you said has played 17 games.
Yeah.
We don't have to defend ourselves from making a smart, chalky pick. That is the right pick. You might have to defend yourself for saying, like, for not being afraid of taking the Lions, but being afraid to say Marvin Harrison. Like he's Voldemort.
You're playing with fire, Chad. You don't even know.
We'll see how it goes when we eventually do our live show in
That's
Philly.
what I'm saying. You're going to Philly.
We're going to Philly.
I don't think you know what you're doing right now.
We're going to Philly. All right, last game on the board that we want to talk about. New York Jets at San Francisco. Look,
Woo!
like, seriously, right? Trent Williams effect. This line was at 3.5. Trent Williams signs. It goes up to 4. Now it's at 4.5.
Yep.
Like, that is rare for an offensive lineman to have that much of an impact on a point spread. That's the only reason this thing is moving. Reminder, since the 2000 Super Bowl, since 2000 season, the Super Bowl losers, 10-14 straight up, 5-19 against the spread. When they're favored by over a field goal, 4-9 against the spread. So, like, we like the Jets. We like them at 3.5. I like them at 4. I like them at 4.5.
Again, Chad hit you with that trend. That's the big thing. But the biggest sticking point is, for me and Chad, we feel like this Jets team coming in here is just being undervalued. And that's the simple fact of Aaron Rodgers has not played football in a long time. But when he has played, he's played really well. And again, I know it's been 2 years, but this team, can we all agree, this Jets team right here is probably better than those Green Bay teams from back then. Like, they went out and they did improve this offensive line this offseason. Like, they did go out and get him a number 2 receiver in Mike Williams, who is healthy for this game, we perceive. But even if he's not, they've gone out and got a rookie receiver. They went out and got Lazard, who I know people think that's a joke, but Lazard has a rhythm and a repertoire with Rodgers, which is a big deal in these kind of games. So the Trent Williams moving this by a point makes total sense when he is the best left tackle in football. So he should be moving this line like he did. But can we all agree it has not felt right with this 49ers team. Now,
No, not at all.
Things that might have got corrected because they do have the structure there, right? They have a great front office. I mean, people want to knock John Lynch for some of his first-round picks. Does it really matter when he's nailing all of his other late-round picks? Like, this guy, for all of his bad, Trey Lance picks, he's got Brock Purdy. Like, this is a home run hit by him, this guy. So I do want to give him his flowers and Jed York for stepping up and paying these guys, which was just bizarro world, not just getting Ayuk or him in the building. But I think we need to capitalize early here in the season of Trent Williams missing camp. Ayuk only being there for a week. Like, come on. If there's going to be a stumble for this 49ers team in the season, it feels like it's going to be here out of the gate, right? Like, this is kind of where it is. And, McCaffrey didn't practice for a month. I know he is back now, but there's just a lot to pick at. Where the Jets, oh my God, Aaron Rodgers went to Egypt and back in May. Like that's been the knock. Or Hassan Reddick, a guy who's never even played on their team, never showed up to camp. It doesn't matter.
Hasn't played on the team and on a defensive line that is one of the best defensive lines in football already.
Yeah, and obviously, yes, it'd be much better if he was there. And they do have a depth issue on that defensive line, but maybe, just as good linebacking core. I mean, just because Navarro Bowman's not who he was because he's coming back off an injury, it's like there is a lot to love with this Jets team. So if we're just going matchup scheme-wise, they remind me a lot of what that Ravens team was last year that gave so much trouble to this 49ers offense. And that's really what I'm banking on here. So another team, Chad, that we debated about putting our money line around Robin because we do love the money line here. How do you not love the 4.5, right? This game feels like it will come down to a field goal or a 4-point finish. So love it that it's back up to the 4.5. I know there's a couple books out there at 3.5. I expect once the public money keeps coming in, this will keep going up to 4.5 in most books.
You mentioned our underdog money line parlay. We did ask our sponsor, Bet365, to give us an underdog money line parlay, an odds boost.
Nice. This
season. And guess what? Because they love us and they love you, they said yes. So each week we will give out a 2-team money line dog parlay. Bet365 will have that highlighted on their site all weekend with boosted odds. You know where you can get Bet365. I read the states where you're eligible twice a show, every show. You should be downloading Bet365 if for no other reason to get this boosted money line underdog parlay. Your week 1 boosted underdog parlay that will be highlighted at Bet365. Get ready. Carolina and Bryce Young and the Panthers beating the Saints. Anthony Richardson, Shane Steichen, Indianapolis Colts beating the Texans. The everybody loves the Texans at home in Indianapolis. The boost will be featured on Bet365 soon. Should be around 5-1. The more listeners who bet these boosts, by the way, the more picks we can get boosted. So keep betting them. And so by the time we get to the end of the season, maybe we're putting 4 or 5 picks into this. Both games are also eligible for Bet365's early payout promo. This is one of my favorite things they did last season. Your moneyline pick gets marked as a win if they take a 17-point lead, even if they go on to blow the game. So this matters whether you're betting an underdog or a favorite, doesn't matter. That team goes up by 17 points. You win the bet. Definitely bet it at Bet365. So the parlay leg is marked as a win. All right, Simon, Survivor. Seattle or Bengals? That's sort of where I'm landing, but you got any thoughts?
Yeah, it's just, if you're in 2 Survivor pools, split them up. Never put all your eggs in one basket. Cincinnati is basically the one everyone's going to bank on to lose because they figure everyone in Joe Public's going to pick them. But it's also like, this is a nice time to use Cincinnati, right? The historically, people are going to keep pointing to, well, they've struggled in week 1. Didn't we already talk about that, Chad? It's like Joe Burrow's never had an offseason, right? Every camp, he's always either injured or he's missing days in camp. This year, he never missed a day in camp. He was there all camp. The hesitation with Chase, I understand if this was an incredibly tough matchup. So New England Patriots, one of the worst teams we perceive in all of football, with
basically playing a backup quarterback.
Yes, with an offensive line that we view as one of the more suspect offensive lines in all of football. So I think we will eventually have a time when we'll start backing New England in these type of spots, and we might even put them in our money line round robin. This is not that spot, right? So for me, if you want to go really safe, I trust Cincinnati. If you want to be a little different and use a team that we don't know when else we're going to be able to use them just because their division's so hard, I like Seattle. Seattle, we already talked about. I have a lot of respect right now for the NFC West. I don't think the Cardinals will be a walkover, which would be an easy pick for Seattle and Survivor. So, because we have to pick one for our show. Do you just want to go Cincy, or where do you want to go there?
Let's go Cincy.
Let's go Cincy.
Yeah.
So we're going the most public pick for Survivor week 1.
And we're making a huge public bet on the Lions, which we are sure we'll get in our final 5, which I'll review at the end of the show. We got a couple more segments. Simon's biggest bets right now. Giants.
Yeah, the Giants are definitely up there. I would say the Colts and the Jets I've just put the most in. Again, the Jets I had been betting for the last month when I really did think we wouldn't see Trent Williams until October. And, you know, him coming back and his reasonings for coming back, they're very human, right? He saw his teammate almost lose his life, and it kind of put perspective for him. And he was just like, what am I doing here? Why am I staying home over a couple million where I need to be with my guys? So getting him back was a big deal. Hasn't really shifted my view of it. It's like I bet it at 4.5. Now it's back up to 4.5. I still love it at 4.5. Chad's right though. Like I really love the Giants, the Panthers. Right, I started betting them when they were at 6. Took them at 5.5. I've taken them at 4.5. If you're still late to the party and there's a 4 out there, I don't mind taking the 4 as well. So right now, those are definitely my 3 biggest bets. I suspect come Sunday, I probably will have a lot more on this Lions team. As the week goes along here, I've just really loved them and just how it lays out for their matchup against this Rams team. So right now, those are definitely my 3 biggest bets.
All right, so now we got to do Skootch Roulette. For those who are new to the show, those who...
We're bringing it back?
We're bringing it back. Bob Skootchy, who is a guy that I wrote about in my best-selling book called The Odds, about guys who were betting on sports for a living. He was the bookmaker at the Stardust Hotel. He was a longtime co-host of this podcast with me when I started it at ESPN and then brought it over when we launched Action. He and I used to play a game every week, 1-to-1, 1-on-1, head-to-head matchup. We called it Skootch Roulette. Simon and I have carried on that tradition. Skootch Roulette. Simon, I will let you go first. Give me the pick you want to make. I feel like I know exactly what it should be.
You don't. I'm going to shock people. Just because we didn't talk about this game and it's totally off board and Chad will never see it coming. I'm going to go with the homer pick and take the Eagles at -2.5.
Wow.
In the NFL International Series, favorites are 33, 10-1 straight up, 29-15, 66% against the spread in international games. So give me them birds now that it's under 3. I love Green Bay at 3. Now that I'm getting 2.5 with this Eagles team, I think this will come down to a field goal. I'll take the Eagles here.
Chad Millman, who proudly hails from Chicago.
Here we go.
Loves the city like no other, even though he hasn't lived there in 30-something years.
Are you going to tell us how there's no place like Chicago in the summer?
It's the greatest city in the world in the summer. I was just there about a month ago. It's the freaking best. I'm going with the Tennessee Titans +4.
Oh, God.
There we go. Evan Abrams. It's time to bring in our buddy Evan. Before we get out of here, he is our director of research. He's going to give us the final word on a couple of things that we need to know. Evan.
What's up, fellas? I got 2 things for you today, and I'll start with this. So only at the Action Network could we have a game with this much contention, and it be Giants and Vikings this week with all the great games we have. But if you like the Giants, you probably do because you have faith in Brian Daboll. So Daboll is 63% against the spread in his coaching career with the Giants. That is highest among all head coaches over the last 20 years with a minimum of 10 games coached. And the greatest part about it, Daboll has had 4 different starting quarterbacks. All 4 are above 500 against the spread with the team. Listen to this murderer's row. Daniel Jones, Tyrod Taylor, Danny DeVito, and Davis Webb. Brian Daboll does an incredible job with whatever he has. So in this situation, getting the 1.5, I can understand it. I'll give you one more on Daboll. So the Giants actually opened as a favorite and looks like they're going to close as the underdog. That's already happened to Daboll 6 times in New York. He's covered 5 of those 6. So he kind of likes the number. Maybe they lose by 1 and you get the hook here. So I knew you guys like the Giants. I had to toss it in there. And then here's a great one. I found this literally last night. I messaged Matt Mitchell. I tell him, I can't believe this is true. It's just really fun. So Derek Carr has won 57% of his games straight up as a favorite. Nothing crazy there in his career. About what you'd expect. When he plays as a favorite indoors, perfect conditions, he's actually only 9-13 straight up. That's 4 games under 500. In the last 20 years, only one other quarterback is 4+ games under 500 as an indoor favorite. That is Derek's brother, David Carr, who is 0-4 straight up in that spot. So The Cars 9-17 straight up. I know everyone's on Carolina. I just couldn't believe it when I saw David's name, but the spot's there. I don't know what to say.
Everything he's telling us is giving me so much confidence.
I know, you're the best, Evan. I appreciate that.
It's almost like I'm almost buoyed. I'm going to walk out of here on air. Thank you, Evan. Simon, I feel like I see 7 games right now that we've whittled it down that we want to choose from. The games that are still on my list: Steelers 3.5, Jags 3.5, Giants 1.5, Panthers +4, Colts if we can get to 3.5, but probably 2.5.
That's fine.
Lions 3.5, Jets 4.5. So
yeah,
either we're getting rid of the Steelers and Jags, who are the late entrants. Or
I definitely see the Steelers not making it. Right. I just don't think we'll ever get that number we want. But that Jag one is tough. Like I want to get that in, but
yeah.
After hearing from our guy Evan
on the Giants,
you got to pry that on my dead hands.
Oh,
like I'm so in on this Giants team. He's a great coach, and people are just underrating him. I mean, it's ridiculous how much hate this team's getting.
All right, so here's how this is going to go for people who follow along and are playing in the contest. Simon and I are going to put our picks in the contest after this show preliminarily, and then we will judge it again on Sunday after we do Convince Me, our live show, 11 a.m. Watch it on Action Network YouTube. Subscribe, like to what you're watching now. Follow the show, Convince Me and this, and all of our shows in the Action app. After we do Convince Me on Sunday morning, Simon and I will put our picks into the app, the Faves 5 feed. Follow that handle in the app, and you'll see what we ultimately end up with. But we're probably going to put 5 in now just to lock in some numbers and see how things change. As a reminder, the Favorites podcast is presented by Bet365. This just in: new Bet365 customers now get $200 in bonus bets when you bet $5. Sign up using promo code FAVORITES. Deposit $10 and place a bet for $5 to get $200 in bonus bets. Those bonus bets can be used on spreads, totals, player props, futures, and more. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 or older and present in Arizona, Colorado, Indiana, Iowa, Louisiana, North Carolina, New Jersey, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Virginia, or 18 and older in Kentucky. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa. Terms, conditions, restrictions apply. All right, reminder, sign up, favorites.actionnetwork.com. Not only is it free, not only do you have the chance to win something from a prize pool of $100,000 with a first place prize of $40,000, a second place prize of $10,000, top 10 get paid out season long. You can win $1,000 every week if you finish first. You do not have to pay anything to enter this. The bonus, you get to compete against me and Simon. So every week you can be listening to us and say, oh my God, I'm smarter than those schmucks because you are ahead of us in the contest. Think about that as pure joy. Don't forget, if you're watching us on YouTube, like, subscribe to the Action Network YouTube page. You can always follow along. Lines move as we're talking, so it helps to watch live. Simon and I will return with our next episode of The Favorites on the Action Network YouTube page. It's our Sunday show. Remember, we bring back the Sunday shows during the season. We're going to go over the 5 picks we ultimately made. We will talk about the heartbreak. We will talk about the joy. We will also take an early look at the lines that get posted. We're off the air before the Sunday night football game starts. We will clearly be betting and sweating the Lions. Download us from Spotify, Apple Pods, wherever you get your pods. Rate, review, subscribe, leave us 5 stars, say whatever you want. Feedback is a gift. Until next time, love you.